guide Dean went to his apartment and got us warm jackets because it's been unusually chilly in Cairo. Plus, they've had the sandstorm, dust storms, which the other day absolutely blanketed Alexandria, as a matter of fact, and they closed the ports. But anyhow, this is our last stop of cultural Cairo. Well, if you want to call cultural Cairo. We're going to do something touristy and visit a Pharaonic Village. Sort of like a Pharaonic Disney World. No sooner had I said that than I see Tutland Park. This is the entrance here, my buddy and myself. Needless to say, they have a huge gift shop. Here's an overview of the entire village, but they do have a great website. We've got our own boat.
We've got our own private guide.
Yeah, well, there's going to be a tape telling the story about every place that we stop.
Welcome to the Pharaonic Village. This was the inspiration of Dr. Hassan Regeb, who wanted to recreate an ancient Egyptian village on the banks of the Nile with as authentic an environment as possible.
We're going to take a walk in time.
Between the trees is a statue of the Roman god Milos. The Pharaonic manufacturing paper were brought to this country from China in about 1000 AD. The ancient art of making paper from papyrus was lost until about 30 years ago.
There's Isis, who brought Osiris back to life and conceived Horus, her son.
The sun and moon as
Horus,
his two
the
eyes.
falcon god.
Later he was regarded as the son of Isis and Osiris. After many years of conflict, Horus was at last triumphant. Ammon was the god of the ancient city of Thebes, where Luxor stands today. He first came to prominence in the Middle Kingdom around 1900 BC.
Karnak is
screened the
dedicated
village
to the
from
god
its wealthy
Ammon.
surroundings.
Now we're coming to the pharaohs.
One of the greatest generals of ancient times. He succeeded to the throne of Egypt at about 8 years of age, but was supplanted by his stepmother, Queen Hatshepsut, who ruled as pharaoh for the next 22 years. Moses, whose mother had put him in a basket and floated it on the Nile to prevent him from being killed by Pharaoh's soldiers. Egypt comes alive with scenes of agriculture and industry. The nobleman and his wife are enjoying the fresh air in their garden pavilion. They are playing a game called Senet, a game for 2 players, a form of which is still played in Egypt today. And here we see the ploughman with his team and the simple wooden plough. After ploughing, the heavy clods of soil are broken up with a hoe, and then furrows are made with the broad-bladed mattock. Beside the houses in the background are pigeon towers. The Egyptians kept pigeons for food, and they were used for carrying messages, especially for the army. The fields are irrigated by means of the shadoof, which works like a balance, with a bucket at one end of a long pole and a heavy stone as a counterweight. Shadoofs are still sometimes used in the Egyptian countryside. Sugarcane was not grown in Egypt in those days. Beehives were made of pottery tubes piled up in rows, and in some parts of the country, beehives are still made this way today. Glassmaking was introduced into Egypt after the military campaigns of Thutmose III about 1450 BC, when captive glassmakers were brought here from Syria. Glass was used for making beads, inlays, amulets and small vessels, which were formed around a core, as glass blowing was not invented until the 1st century BC. In Ptolemy, mummification is basically dehydration, and to speed up this process, the internal organs of the body were removed and preserved separately. The body was dried out by being covered with natron salt, a form of soda found in the deserts of Egypt. The body was then cleaned and embalmed and wrapped in several layers of linen bandages. Amulets were put between the bandages to protect the mummy from harm. The whole process took 70 days. It is one of the oldest crafts in Egypt, dating back to about 6000 BC. The clay is kneaded with water and mixed with ground potsherds or chopped straw. First of all, the surface is leveled, then smoothed and polished with a piece of hard stone. Grid lines are marked in red on the prepared surface to ensure accurate enlargements of the original drawings. The artist copies the outline onto the wall, working from the sketch made by the chief artist on a small slab of stone or a piece of papyrus. Then the sculptor carves the design in relief with his mallet and chisel. Weapons included bows and arrows, swords, battle axes and spears, as well as shields and throw sticks.
One of my favorite scenes, winemaking.
Good wine was appreciated in Pharaonic times, and this scene shows the method of winemaking. Bunches of ripe grapes